Welcome, everyone. I don't know if we're going to have a regular intro. This might get deleted. We'll see. Lucas, let me know. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with someone that I'm so excited to talk to and have had the pleasure of having a couple other conversations with, and I'm very excited to talk about his journey to this point. So stay tuned, get excited, and have some fun with us. So, hi, here I have with me Jordan Breeding. Please tell the audience how they might know you, where they can find you. Who are you, my friend?
Jordan Breeding. The main thing is I have been a part of trying to bring the Cracked YouTube channel back into existence as best I can. If you Google me, I've written for a lot of other sites as too. If you just Google my name, I exist. There's a web developer who died a few years ago named Jordan Breeding.
Oh, goodness.
Lots of tributes to him, and that's really sad, but I'm slowly pushing his SEO down. So,
well, you know, we died twice, and he's slowly dying the second time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's true. Yeah. His internet death is taking longer.
It is a pleasure having you on, and I first found out about you through that Cracked resurgence because I had just been silently subscribed, didn't see much activity, and I slowly saw your videos. I was like, what's this about? And you won my heart as well as the heart of thousands. On that note, what brought you here? So what brought you to the resurgence of Cracked, a YouTube channel that for a long time was like one of those big, I wouldn't call it BuzzFeed, but you know, like in the similar vein of popularity. Definitely different subject matters, but what brought you here?
Depending on how far back you want to go, in October of 2016, I quit my job, which was a music director at a church at the time, and I thought I was going to do music full time, and it took me like a week to realize that wasn't going to work. How are you going to make any money doing that? I had a band, but we weren't doing enough, so I remember that my favorite website at the time, Cracked, took unsolicited articles, and so I pitched them an idea I had about Star Wars, and they accepted it, and I had so much freaking fun writing it that I just ended up pitching tons and tons of articles all through 2017. I wrote like 50, 60 articles that year for them, and then I leveraged that into an internship with Paste Magazine, so we actually moved down to Atlanta for a few months to write for them. I wrote like 450 articles for them, and then as you know, and many people know, maybe not everybody, the parent company of Cracked ended up firing everybody. Primarily the YouTube guys, and so, you know, my dreams of getting hired there had been dashed. I had thought that I would, I don't know. I was like, I think I'm doing a lot. Maybe they'll hire me. It's a big company. And then everything fell out. I got another job as another music director job at a church. And I was still writing for Cracked. And I was still doing stuff. And then in December of 2019, I was taking a shower. And then it just came to me. I was like, what if I made a YouTube video? I can make YouTube videos, theoretically. I have a background in some of that. And more importantly, I had a friend, Caleb, who's great with video stuff. And so I said, hey, why don't we set up a green screen in your basement and shoot it, see what happens? And we did. And I sent it off to one of my contacts over at Crack just because I've been writing for them so much. And they liked it. They ordered 10 more and then 10 more. And then they asked me if I wanted to be on full time.
And it's so funny because, like, watching your videos, they feel like the older Crack videos where it's you in front of a green screen playing this character, giving all this word vomiting, all this beautiful knowledge about media.
Right.
The thing that I found really funny is when you started telling me about how like lean your entire production is right now, because I thought it was like, okay, cool. This is another like media professional. He's got a studio, all this other stuff.
Yeah, that's what's funny. There were even people on, not necessarily on staff, but like contractors with Cracked who were like in the Slack channel. I'd been in the Slack channel, but I wasn't very active. They were like, oh, wait, we didn't hire a whole new video team. It's just you guys? We're like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, this is what happened. The first one that we did, we actually shot up here, and it was so garbage, we ended up not using it. We reshot it.
Oh, goodness.
It's just a camera, one camera, and then obviously me and a green screen. We have a few lights and stuff. We were borrowing a boom mic. That wasn't that great. And that's it. Caleb is running the teleprompter at the same time, and we actually haven't paid for like a real teleprompter program, so it's in reverse on his computer screen, because we're reflecting it through a piece of plexiglass. So he actually has a piece of, like a mirror behind him that he's looking at. So he's scrolling. He's not even looking at me. He's looking at this piece of glass because we're so cheap. We're just like, why would I spend $20 for a program that can split the visual and make it flipped when we can just put a piece of glass on a piece of like a stick and reflect that. So yeah, it's just us down there, and we have one other guy that helps us with the assembly cut editing, and then I do all the clips and all the fine-tune editing, and then Caleb does all the keying and color correction, and he balances most of the audio and stuff. So yeah, it's a very small operation, which is why I've got some of these bags of sleepiness. We shot another episode this morning, so
it really amazes me how much, like, because you told me the other week we were talking and you just mentioned how, like, it never stops when you're making these videos, and you're making them at, like, in my opinion, an alarmingly consistent rate for one person in particular. Because on this channel, like, Alan and I make videos, like, we'll swap every week, we'll have an interview, we'll have a couple of other things, but you consistently are making this really good content, and now you're branching out into a couple other things. Like I saw movie math, you have the debates coming through. So it really, in my opinion, is very impressive, but also the fact that it is lean, that not only is it so much content, but it's also all that content that's like, okay, cool, well, we'll just make it work. It's fine.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I have the benefit of, whether I haven't been making any videos, but I've been thinking about this for 4 years. Like I've been writing cracked articles, and there have been plenty of things that have been rejected over the years that now nobody could stop me. I can give my opinions that nobody can withhold.
I heard your stuff about Darth Vader.
Darth Vader sucks.
I hate rude, very rude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just as an example, I have over the years consistently pitched that I thought that the weird thing about Minority Report is the idea that they only worked in DC, like the precogs or whatever. And I was like, so if they just left DC, they could commit all the crimes they wanted. Everybody's like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, it's going to happen. Someday I'm going to write about it. Yeah, I mean, at some point the bottom might fall out, but for now, at least, I've just got years and years of stupid ideas that I'm pulling from, and new stupid ideas all the time. The ideas haven't been as much of an issue. It's been can we keep up with the editing? Can we keep up with the pace? What's the best? And that's why I wanted to do things like movie math and things like the crack debate, where I can have new venues for ideas. So like that 1917 idea about the truck's going like 300 miles per hour. It didn't feel necessarily like I wanted to put that in a full Your Brain on Cracked. It felt like kind of a goofy one-off where you really lean into the math of it. And so now it's nice to have a couple other wells that I can pour stupid ideas that I have into. So
that's something that I love, and I love that you mentioned the fact that, like, these are ideas that you've had forever and now you can put them somewhere. Is my brother and I, for the longest time, we'd take long car rides and be like, this would make such a good YouTube video and all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, one day, whatever. And then now that we both have our own channels, and we're like, I'm gonna make that video that I kept saying would be a good idea. I'm gonna show them and stuff like that. And that's something that I love about YouTube, especially both the lean production that you're doing, but also the fact that, like, cool, these are just the cool ideas that you want to make, and now you have a complete opportunity to do it on this platform. And I mean, I've really enjoyed watching the new episodes of Cracked, because it's the kind of stuff that, like, not only is the humor there from the writing, but also I really like your character as a doctor and like inserting some of those jokes.
So the pilot episode, my only goal was to sell it. I wasn't like, okay, here's my plan to take over YouTube, and here's all the calculated ways I'm going to do that. It was literally, well, at the end of Cracked's time, they were launching a bunch of news shows that had kind of themed stuff. So there was like Junk History, which had Tom Ryman as like a archaeologist of toys or whatever. And then they had Reckless Disagreement, which had JF Sargent as like a guy living in a bunker drinking his own pee. Daniel O'Brien's thing was, I guess, a newscaster in obsessive pop culture sort of, but it was just Daniel O'Brien.
Yeah, he seems like he always played like himself a lot.
Yeah.
Not that I know him. I don't know anything about him, but
Right, there are a couple of occasional times he like touches his ear or whatever, and it's like, oh, he's, I guess, hearing from the producers or whatever. But I figured, to do something different, but in the vein that they were trying to do at the end, why don't I be a doctor because of the pun, Your Brain on Cracked? I like that. And then now it's like 20 episodes later, you're like, oh my god, I didn't think through whether I would have doctor jokes for the next 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, when it comes to recording videos and having your little workarounds, I remember you mentioning trying to get around not having a 4K camera in your zoom-ins.
We both only have one camera, and it's not 4K currently. So what we end up doing is, to get the the cut ins and outs, we do 2 takes chest up basically, and then we literally physically wheel the camera up and do 2 takes much closer. Actually, now we have a new lens, so we just switch out the lens. And so I actually haven't seen any of the footage from this season yet. It's a new camera, so we'll see.
Ooh, okay, exciting.
It would be great to shoot it in 4K and then be able to just punch in and out and just do 3 takes or something, but you know, we've been doing it so long, and I feel like by the 4th take, I feel like I'm really in a groove with like improvs and stuff, and so a lot of the funnier bits or voices or whatever will come from that 4th take, where it's like, oh, I've done it 3 times and I'm bored and I'm trying to make Caleb laugh, and so some of the best stuff happens when I'm much more comfortable with the script and can kind of just go off and say whatever weird thing comes to mind. Also knowing that we have 3 solid takes or whatever, so then I have the freedom to do whatever. So it is nice kind of overdoing it, but it's a lot more work for us when we have to go back through and edit all of it.
Yeah, when we had talked about that and you had mentioned it to me, I was like, man, we can barely get through 1 take. Like, I don't even understand how you do 4, because for us, it's really just trying to make sure that everything sounds competent, go back through, be like, okay, did we get that? Are we all good? And then we can cut it back in, versus like just kind of the working around having the punch ins and punch outs. When you're in the editing room, you want to make sure you have everything that you can. And so like, I can only imagine like editing 4 takes together and just having all of that probably allows for a really tight, and I mean, I've seen your videos, they're tight as heck, like they're very good. So all of that extra effort definitely goes somewhere.
Colby and the guys over there were pretty adamant. They were like, we want to do this weekly. If we're going to do it, let's do it every week. And I was like, okay, great. And so we haven't really taken much time to look at the process and be like, could we improve this? Is it worth improving? We like how the videos have turned out, generally speaking, and so we're kind of rolling with it. Obviously, we're adding a lot of, we're getting more meta as we go and adding a little bit more like handheld camera stuff and like other weird, goofy inserts. But even
in a gorilla, yeah.
Yeah, and a gorilla. It's funny, it's like, nothing that we're doing is very professional. We work really hard and hope that it works out. We believe in the writing and stuff, and so I think it kind of comes together in the end most of the time. Not always, but frequently.
In my subscription feed, when I first saw that, I was so upset that I didn't think of that pun before. It made me, I was like, this is too good. I need to watch this. And then It was one of those things, and I mean, getting into a more serious topic, that like early on when I first saw it, I was just like, oh my god, this guy's so good, I'm upset. Like it was one of those things where I'm just like, he's bringing back Cracked, but like from what I had seen, and for those that don't know, when the company bought out Cracked and then fired a lot of people, that I've watched so many think pieces about that, so much stuff, and in particular, it just like from a business perspective is rough, because there are these personalities that you've gotten to know over YouTube and gotten really attached to. Now they're all gone, and you have no one but to blame about it except for the company. And
Right.
So I'm curious how you've dealt with that, how you've dealt with having to deal with all these rough fanboys that are just like, you're part of the company that fired all my friends, my online friends, when in reality it's now no longer under their management. It's now a different group.
My initial thing early on was I had asked Cracked specifically if I could write like an FAQ or like some sort of intro thing just to try and, I mean, that is part of the impetus for this idea, right? So I knew that the company that had fired everybody sold the company again in September of 2019, and that was part of me being like, and they had reached out to me about some extra writing opportunities, being like, hey, we're doing things a little bit differently. As some people have mentioned, like they've been winding down the writer's workshop because it's just so much freaking work to maintain that. I mean, you get, for every guy that you get like me who ends up pitching and selling like 100 articles, you get tons of people that are just like, hey, Canada's weird. And then somebody has to come in and be like, thank you for your submission. We need a little bit more.
You promised you wouldn't bring me up. You promised you wouldn't bring up my submission.
So as they were winding that down, they were asking a few people to do some extra stuff and whatever. And they asked me, and that was that burrowed the seed of like, oh, it's a new company. Maybe they want to do new things. Like they bought the YouTube channel. Maybe they want to bring it back. And that's part of the fortuitous thing here, is one of the reasons they jumped on this so quickly was because that was the plan. That was 100% the plan. They were like, we want to relaunch it, but we have no idea how or where. They were considering hiring a just like a producer guy to take old articles and just make them like text-based whatever videos, like you see on Looper, where like Looper will just have somebody
Yeah.
in an Australian accent like read the article over clips. That was the original plan, and they were like, oh no, this would be much closer to what Cracked was than before. The way it's played out, like I just, it never really happened, me writing something on Cracked itself. So I just wrote something on my own blog, and then I just posted. I didn't have access to the Cracked channel until very recently, and fortunately, Colby, I think the editor-in-chief of the parent company, saw my little post and pinned it to the top of it. And then
That's awesome.
we had enough people be like, hey, I was coming here to tell you that you should like go kill yourself, and I hate you and I hate everything about you. But I read what you wrote, which is, I didn't work for Cracked. I was just like a guy. I have a real job, or I did have a real job. Now I don't have a real job. Now I just write for Crack. But also, like, I'm doing this because I like Crack so much. I just want there to be more of it. And I want, part of my goal with all of this is to direct you to, okay, what is Daniel O'Brien doing now? What is Michael Swaim doing now? What is Tom Ryman doing now? As opposed to just being like, hey, they built something for me and I'm going to grab it all and use their success. I just want to continue to extend a thing that I think is great, and also draw attention to all these guys that got screwed over by a company that no longer has anything to do with Cracked.
And that was the moment that I realized, I'm like, okay, this is definitely somebody that I want to reach out to and see how everything's going, because I saw your FAQ video where you had basically
Right.
took that and put it into a full video Q&A about like, yeah, no, we're completely supportive of the people that got that all of this happened to. I was like, oh, okay, cool, because there's definitely that attitude that you can come into with, okay, well, this company did something really bad that I don't like, and then they were kind of like silent for a while and then came back as if like, oh, okay, well, everyone will forget that. We can just kind of come back, no big deal. When in reality, that's not even what happened. It's completely, you guys are very supportive of them, and that it's just moving forward after that whole huge hiccup with the other company.
Yeah, and it's weird, and it's difficult to be like, hey, people that watch YouTube videos, like, how come you don't know all the backwards business dealings of this website or whatever? And like, I think there are plenty of YouTubers that don't even realize that Cracked, A, is owned by any company, or B, has a website. I mean, I think there are plenty of them that are just like, hey, I thought Cracked was just these, 20 people making fun stuff, and then whoever was in charge of them fired them all or something. And so I get that, like, people don't understand it. I do think it's helpful to be able to lean a little bit on, hey, I'm a Cracked contractor and I have been for a long time. I'm not some random dude. And also, it's not like they hired, I don't know, like, I think it just would have felt different if they did hire, I don't know, like an SNL alum director guy who like would come in and have nothing to do with the brand but would be like super slick, as opposed to it just being like, hey, I just like a dude in my basement that really likes the brand. I'm not trying to destroy all things. I just really like it. So I wanted to do it myself if I could. Obviously, some people are still pissed about that, but
And they'll be pissed till the end of time. Don't worry.
I know. And that's the other thing is that a lot of these former creators have been really gracious. So, like, obviously, I don't know if you know this. I was on Michael Swaim's podcast on Small Beans, where I got to talk to him and Jason Pargin, and that was really cool. Daniel O'Brien and Soren both, tweeted out their support of the pilot episode and stuff like that.
That's
so
awesome.
That would matter more to me if Daniel O'Brien was like, hey, somebody go find and kill this kid. I would think much more seriously about like, oh, maybe, as opposed to like Poopball69 on YouTube or whatever.
That's a huge thing for me when it comes to YouTube in general, is when you have that criticism, but knowing who to actually listen to. That, if somebody, if some random person online said like, oh, you're stupid. We have so many on our last Airbender video where they just write fat avatar, and I'm just like, cool, man, that's fine. I don't mind, whatever. Like that's not even constructive or anything. I think they're funny, and I still laugh whenever I see any of them. But like when you hear actually some constructive, either anything constructive, or you hear an actual critique from someone, from an authority of some sort, where you're just like, oh no, this person knows what they're talking about and they're completely right, and I need to fix what I'm doing. And I don't know if you've seen any of that from on the Crack channel, mostly because you've been doing an amazing job, and I'm just going to keep saying that. But when it comes down to like us, we've had certain technical videos about like camera stuff, and then we'll get actual technicians come in and be like, no, you're completely wrong, and you don't know what you're talking about this one. Then after that, like for us, we especially were like, okay, we need to take that back. We need to unlist this, make sure that we don't spread any misinformation. And it really only comes from the fact that's like, this is somebody that knows what they're talking about. they're correcting us, I will fix it, versus Poophead69, who's just in the comments just trying to entertain themselves.
The one that we had was early on. If you look at the pilot in particular, the title cards had a really high-pitched whine in them because the sound effect that we were using was an old-timey, terrible, like, transistor TV turning on, and that was just, like, part of the sound effect. But a lot of people were like, well, that hurts my ears. Why would you intentionally? It's like, well, for realism.
It's immersion.
Yeah, right. So that was one of the things that from then on I was like, oh, we should take it out. Another one is honestly in the pilot I did the Daniel O'Brien bye.
Okay, bye.
Again, just trying to sell the video and kind of as an homage. There are several homages to former creators in there, but I was like, you know what? I really shouldn't do that. I had already recorded a few, so we cut them out of those, and then and certain other things just kind of like the jokes weren't worth feeling like I was doing too much of their thing. And so as we've gone, if you've been watching a lot of them, it's becoming less and less of like, oh, it's Daniel O'Brien, but not as funny, and a little bit more of like, maybe it's not as funny, but oh, it's very clearly this guy's weird thing. Building off of obviously this established cracked voice that kind of exists beyond all of us to some extent. Really, it's like the Jack O'Brien and the Jason Pargin, whatever they built 15 years ago, that all of us have inserted our personalities into. I think more often than not, people will completely whiff on jokes. I had so many people yell at me because I said something about werewolves' body temperatures being at like 109 degrees Fahrenheit, and the whole thing was talking about how sexy werewolves were. So I said, or probably like 69 degrees Kelvin, and I high-fived myself. And so many people were like, 69 Kelvin is like insanely cold? That is not correct. And I was like, if I was really why would I try and convert to Kelvin? Who is that for?
It's the Kelvin audience, dude. That's the entire demographic on YouTube.
Right. Well, it's like, if I'm going to do it, who is it for? And how would I be off by what is essentially like 400 Kelvin or something? Like, it's just funny. I'm like, anyway, there have been a couple of times where I did offhand jokes that I missed. Like, it was an improv. Like, for example, I was talking about astronomers getting in fights with Native Americans. I was like, well, that doesn't happen. And a lot of people were like, no, it actually does. That's a real thing. And I was like, oh.
Really?
Well, shoot. Yeah, there's like an observatory. Basically, there's this Native American, it's called a Redsploitation film called Thunder Warrior or something that I was talking about because it's a really weird genre. He like gets in a fight with people that are building an observatory on his ancestral like home ground or whatever. And I was like, because you know how they're always fighting with astronomers, and people are like, no, that's like a real thing. That's like based in something. I was like, well, crap. It's stupid offhand joke that ends up being actually completely incorrect. So there have been some. I haven't found anything that's made me like go back through and like scrub anything or whatever. It's just more like I'll just try and be upfront in the comments and be like, yeah, I whiffed on that. That was weird.
We did a video and I had mentioned how they put the like that line in the NFL games that like shows you where the line of scrimmage is.
Yeah.
That's like superimposed. And we had a video about that. And in there I said like, this is 1999. They didn't have anything cool like The Matrix or Jurassic Park, as if Jurassic Park didn't come out before 1999. Right. And then all in the comments are just like, are you serious? I don't believe anything you said before. I'm like, yeah, 1999, right? Crazy year. And then just all of that. So don't worry. Don't worry. Yeah. I read the comments. Don't worry. I understand. And I'm curious what your process is for writing, because we talk about like storytelling a lot on the channel, but we don't really get into what it's like writing episodes. And for us, our episodes are pretty simple. That like I'll sit down, watch a movie, and be like, oh, here's a film making technique we haven't talked about. Let's explore it and show how the movie does it, and that's more or less how that goes for us. And then like, share, comment, and subscribe thrown in there. But for you guys, like, how does that feel? Because you've had a lot of experience in writing, and I'm curious how that translates.
Yeah, I mean, at its core, Your Brain on Cracked is just an article. It's just me writing a big article. A lot of it has been adapted. I literally just write in the same style that I would write an article. It's the same format. It's the same structure. Really? The only change is I've got obviously like a little goofy thing at the beginning. That wouldn't make any sense in an article like this is the show on crack. And then I have the little thing at the end. But everything else, originally I just write an article. I insert what clips I think will fit, jokes based on clips that I remember or whatever, or I'll do research ahead of time. Once I have essentially the article written, we'll go back through, and by we, this is all just me at this point. I had a friend my best friend from like high school and college and everything. Some would let me read them aloud to him, and sometimes he would tell me if they were good or not. Then I'll go back through and try and look at things that now that it's not just like there's a visual element to it, what are the things that would come across better? Like how do we now twist it so it's a video essay and not just an article? And so sometimes that means goofy inserts, or it means getting weird with the camera and being like, oh, actually we're in a studio, just like hand motions or facial expressions or voices or whatever, things like that. But at its core, it's just a cracked article.
This brings me to my biggest question when it comes to making any crack content is how do you do all of those I'm going to curse. All these amazing inserts of clips from movies.
The movie never answers Ross's question, though they do destroy a lot of public property pretending to debate it.
Oh, come on!
Because they all seem so perfect, not only from when they happen in the movie, but then like, and I've tried it on our channel, hasn't worked out super well, of like grabbing little fun moments from a movie and then slipping them in for an extra joke. And every cracked show I've seen has like so many good inserts, and yours is no exception. So how does that go for you guys, like digging in and finding those clips?
Honestly, I just have really good memory. I just remember
very translatable skill.
Yeah, I don't know, it's hard. It's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit of luck. I think one of the skills that I've learned writing all these cracked articles is how to be a really good researcher. So for example, one of my favorite jokes that we had was I made a Zaboomafoo reference. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
Oh, of course.
And then I said something about the whole thing was about turtle sex. I was like, there's no way there hasn't been a clip of turtles on Zaboomafoo in however many years it ran. And then it just so happened that the clip with Zaboomafoo had him saying, wow, you're hard. So like, I don't have a photographic memory of Zaboomafoo, but I had faith that I would find something interesting. And if I didn't, whatever. It's just a combination of knowing movies really well and remembering dumb lines. And then also fortuitous sometimes. I actually sometimes limit myself. I don't always, but I often steal clips from YouTube as opposed to like owning all the DVDs and ripping them. The clips that are on YouTube, you're kind of limited in what they don't have full movies. It's just a whole nother series of jokes writing, like trying to think of what the connotation is if I put this clip right after this. Or like another one that I thought was so freaking funny was, it didn't even have anything to do with anything, but in The Village, when he's talking about that the monsters aren't real, he stutters over himself. He's like, it's just farce.
It is only farce.
And it's such a goofy line read. It like didn't even really matter what had preceded it. It was just like, then he says that the monsters aren't real. And then just that clip is so dumb, separate from the rest of the movie. I don't know. I think movies are dumb. Ultimately, like this is like
that's going to be the quote of the whole thing. Is just going to be Jordan Breeding. Movies are dumb. That's
well, they create these perfect little like self-contained beautiful worlds that you don't think about anything at the time except what's happening. And then it's Hitchcock's thing, right? The fridge logic, the fridge horror. When you're at the fridge later and you're like getting a sandwich out in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, that didn't make any freaking sense. That's the premise of all of this, which is like, even when you're just editing these jokes, it's like in the moment that's tense and you're like, oh my gosh, the monsters aren't real. You're not thinking how goofy it is that he stumbled over that line a little bit because the emotion of the moment. But when you can pull these things out of context, now they're funny and they're goofy. And for me, that doesn't ruin the movies at all. If anything, it enhances them. Like, I enjoy watching a movie for fun and then going back through and just deconstructing it and being like, well, that was dumb. Even though I enjoyed every minute of it, I still think there's a lot about it that's goofy if I imply unfair logic to it.
If I show Alan any edit and he doesn't immediately laugh, it's like, okay, that's going out. I'm getting rid of it. Because he's the kind of person that he'll like, if I show him something, he'll like either laugh immediately or just like take a moment and be like, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, and then anything after that is like, okay, we got to delete it or we got to retool it. Whenever I've tried to insert that stuff, it doesn't go super well. But like when it comes to, I think that's like as an editor and as like a kind of a student of film, that's something that you end up doing and you end up really enjoying, or at least I have, is when you go back and rewatch movies and you take them in as the context of the time, or what they are as like a piece of art instead of like a story in itself. Like I'll go and rewatch Tron or Tron Legacy and just be like, wow, for the time, these are crazy. Like rewatch parts of Star Wars and be like, how did they do this at the time? And I've shown people any of those movies and they've been like, this is boring. I want to watch something fun. And it's like, but this is art. This is so crazy that they did all this stuff at the time.
Yeah, I'm watching Batman right now, the original, because I never saw, well, the 1989. And it's really cool, and I'm impressed by all the art design and stuff, and like the backgrounds and the sets. And I'm also like, I'm so tired of hearing the like ricochet every time they shoot a gun. I'm like, I understand why it's great. I'm having a hard time getting into the like him throwing smoke bombs and literally standing there for 5 seconds and then going away, just like the goofy pacing of it.
Well, as soon as somebody told me that he can't turn his neck, I couldn't stop seeing it forever.
I just noticed that today. I was like, he like whips his head back.
He's a plank. He really is. It's so good.
By contrast, I saw Back to the Future again recently. It's fantastic. It holds up so well. Mm-hmm. I think action is like the main thing that you're just going to lose as we go along. Like the action gets more and more sophisticated. Jokes are jokes. I mean, those live on.
Any of those complicated stories that just reminded me of that like stock sound effect. Like if I picture Indiana Jones punching someone, it's the same sound effect every time. And how like it's funny how quaint things become as technology moves forward. Because now you can be like, I could go on any stock royalty website and grab a bunch of sound effects. Come on, you hack writers at the time or editors at the time, which at the time they could only get so much, or they just need to slip something in. And it's funny how much you see it. It really is a tightrope walk anytime you make a movie, especially back then, and you just give it that like, I could have done that. I can do that right now, and I can make a Toy Story right now in Blender. It's like, yeah, but back then they couldn't make anything anywhere.
Well, and it's also like they didn't make Batman for me to watch on my laptop at my house. Like they made it for the freaking theater exclusively. Like maybe eventually it would wander onto a VHS tape or whatever. But like in general, a lot of these older movies were, you know, that stupid sound effect sounds freaking sick when it's, you know, in a big theater. And the music is like all encompassing and all the stuff, but when it's just like me, you're just like, well, this movie's stupid. But it literally was not made for that, as opposed to a Netflix movie, which is like, you literally will never see this in theaters. It's being mixed for my TV. It's being mixed for headphones.
The one thing, the last question that I wanted to mention, because you brought it up earlier, and we are talking about movie mixing, is God's Not Dead. What about that, Jordan Breeding? What about God's Not Dead, my friend?
What I always tell people is that if there's one skill that I have, one career skill that I have, it's finding ways to get paid to do useless, to not have to get real jobs and just find ways to make money doing useless things that nobody else would know how to do. I want to say it's either after my junior or senior year of college. Maybe I'd already graduated. And I was sitting in our house, our college house, and I was looking for jobs. And I already had something to do in the fall, but I needed something to do that summer. This must have been junior year, so I was just trying to find a summer job. I was perusing Craigslist, and I saw, like, can you sound like explosions in the sky? And I was like, yeah. Oh, that's great. I could do that. I've been playing electric guitar since I was 10, and Explosions in the Sky is already kind of a band that I enjoyed mimicking with my own stuff. So I just, wrote some stuff, put a bunch of reverb on it, and emailed it, and then they called me back and were like, hey, like, if I send you some stuff, can you just overlay some guitar? And they did. I actually wrote a whole thing about it for, not Cracked, but Hard Noise, which is a magazine. Yeah, they paid me like $200 to do like the whole freaking movie. It was,
oh my God,
not worth it. I never met anyone. It was all over email. And then they hired me again to do the second one, and I argued for more money, and I got like $600. And then they didn't hire me or the composer for the third one, so I'm sure it's terrible.
And it's funny mention, because as soon as you said that, I'm just like, that's definitely a right out of college thing. Because like I did so many projects and other stuff for like with my expertise out of college for just like like $100 is fine. No, that'll be fine. And like you're doing stuff that like a company with like any sort of clout would be like, yeah, no, $10,000, please.
Right, exactly.
I'll take that right now. It's funny seeing the difference, and like when you grow, you realize that you're just like, okay, not gonna make that deal again.
Yeah.
But I need to include that tidbit.
Yeah, it's fun. It's one of those things where it's like the value of me being able to say I'm getting paid to play guitar is worth more than any monetary amount for me to be able to go downstairs and be like, guys, just want you to know I'm a paid session guitarist for a movie. I'm gonna make $200 over the course of like 6 months. So
I'll be the first to say that like the quote I've always heard is if you're getting paid to do it, you're a professional. And so like
Right.
being able to like anything, just be like, I'm a professional backflipper or something,
Right.
like wish I could do a backflip, don't know why I mentioned that, but
Yeah.
like when it comes to down to that kind of thing of just being able to tell people like, yeah, I'm a like, oh my god, when I got my first drone project, I was like, guys, I'm a professional drone pilot. I will
Yeah,
never
exactly.
stop saying this. And now
Yeah.
I mean I do it professionally for a job, but it's just one of those things that you just feel so empowered and you're just like, I can do anything. I'm the master of my own universe.
Right, like I've been saying I'm a comedy writer for like 4 years, but it's not been a full-time thing until like 2 months ago. And so it does feel nice. Yeah, there's this long stretch where my wife was like, how am I supposed to, like, what do I say that you do? Because I was mostly just writing stuff on the internet, but it was all freelance. I was like, just tell them I'm a comedy writer. They'll understand. They don't need to know how much I actually bring in a year because it's embarrassing, but I'm a comedy writer.
On that note, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you and all your good stuff?
Cracked YouTube channel. I do a lot of it, but not all of it now. We had a series last week that I had nothing to do with, which was wonderful. I gave them the idea and they ran with it. Twitter at _J_breeding. For anything else, you could just Google my name, and I write a lot of other stuff, satire, and I don't know, whatever.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Go to our Patreon, all that stuff. But I just wanted to thank you so much for, like, I just reached out on Twitter, was just like, dude, let's talk. And you're like, yeah, of course, why not? That would be fun. So I really appreciate you being super gracious with your time and hanging out. And I had a blast. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks for taking the time.
And I'll see you guys later, probably on a stream where I play a dumb video game. Goodbye.